Chris Hughes, a photographer. Actually, he's not a photographer. He's a designer. He owns a design firm in Canada, and he recently went on a trip to Cuba for fun and adventure, and he had some of the latter and very little of the former. So he went there and essentially decided he's going to bring his DJI Phantom drone with him and get some aerials. Of course, I would do the same thing, and he did that, but they incarcerated him for 13 days for flying his drone in Cuba, and it's just a horrible story. I watched the whole video, and they put him in a tiny cell, gave him a piece of chicken every day and some rice that was probably, not all rice, and had a hole in the ground to take care of his bodily functions. And for 13 days, he didn't even know if people knew he was alive, and all because he had a drone. Christine Allward, this is scary, right? Especially considering...
this is like what nightmares are made out of.
Oh my God,
this is terrible. And, I'm not surprised that this happened to him in Cuba. I'm not kind of surprised he's surprised a little bit.
But he wasn't doing anything. I would be surprised if I had gone to Cuba and I had my drone with me, and I'm like on the beach. I'm like, oh man, look at the colorful buildings. This would be amazing from the sky.
But he wasn't at the beach. He was at somewhere. What did he say? He mentioned where he was, and it was something else,
Revolution
right?
Square.
Yeah, Revolution Square. Yeah.
I don't know. So I watched the whole thing too, and I kind of don't believe him.
Oh, you think he was doing something nefarious down there?
It seems like a PR stunt.
Oh,
He did not seem genuine to me at all. The way that he was speaking in that video was very strange to me. I kind of was just like, this guy's making some stuff up.
That's interesting. I never even... See, that's the trusting person in me. I need to get rid of that guy, because I'm like always, call it gullible, but I always believe... It's always innocent until proven guilty. So I always believe people at their word.
I feel bad. Like, I don't want to say he's a liar. I'm sure it happened, but, if it happened to me, I'm sure I would be, like, out of my mind too. But the way he was telling the story was just very strange to me.
Yeah. Oof,
okay, but this guy, if you watch the video, he gets his thrills going into active war zones almost. He is an adventure and thrill seeker, the likes of which I consider to be reckless.
Would he say 18 countries in the past year? He said.
I think it was over 20. He said in the past year, and with a wife and 2 small kids at home. I'm a new dad. I would not necessarily be doing those reckless things. I don't know his life. I'm not going to judge him, but I most certainly wouldn't do some of the things that he's done. I would, because he lives less than an hour from me. I would love to sit down over a beer and hear his stories and live vicariously through them. That's fine by me. But I look at this and I think, okay, if it is legitimately true, Revolution Square, for those that don't know, it's surrounded by buildings where a lot of the high level bureaucracy of the Cuban government is located, and so there are military guards around, I'm sure, and there are people paying very, very specific attention to people doing things that might be associated with spying. And so I don't think it's inconceivable that he gets detained as a potential spy or terrorist and goes through this particular process. After 5 days, he met with the Canadian consulate, and they said that your wife knows you're alive and that they know you're here, and so that added some sense of relief, I'm sure, to that experience. But imagine, for 5 days, you're locked in a cell, solitary confinement, no sunlight, no anything, and you don't know if anybody knows you're alive or dead.
That's horrible.
That is terrifying. That is terrifying beyond belief. Now, that being said, there are countries that have very strict laws about photography and about drones, and if you take that equipment into a country without knowing what those rules are, you are subject to the penalties. And that's just the bottom line for this kind of a scenario. If you're being reckless in certain ways, play within the rules, play outside the rules. If you're outside the rules, then there are consequences to face if you get caught. I think that it all just boils down to that. The consequences here could have been far worse for this guy.
Oh,
He was out in 13 days. You know, he was mentioning in this video that there were people there, some guy from Russia, 14 months, and 2 people from Italy. No, Russia and Italy are not third world countries or developing nations nearby. They would potentially have the power to get their people out. So maybe the real heroes here is Chris's wife, who thought something was wrong and reached out to the Canadian government. And the Canadian government, for solving this problem, removing the label of being a terrorist and a spy, and getting him declared innocent in less than 2 weeks. So, I mean, I've been to Cuba on vacation, and it's a wonderful place. I'd love to go back there. I'm not going to bring a drone, but you know what was funny? When we were in Cuba, we were at a resort near Santiago, and wonderful place, would go back there in a heartbeat. We didn't realize at the time that it was about 10 kilometers away from Guantanamo Bay.
Oh.
And so fast forward to today. If I were to do that today, now that drones are prevalent and I could potentially take one with me, and I'm just walking down the beach with my lovely wife and say, okay, well, let's just do some wonderful beach shots, and I fly a drone accidentally over Guantanamo Bay, I'm a new detainee there. You know?
I was going to say, you would become a new resident possibly there. Yeah.
And I wouldn't have known. Right? So you have to be very, very careful about these things.
Yeah, no, I know. I totally agree. Yeah, it's an interesting story, and Christine, you know, shedding the light on it that it could be a PR stunt.
I'm sure it's not. I'm just
and then it's
cynical.
also and then also the idea that maybe he was doing something. I mean, like with anything, especially when in a country that's foreign to you, you have to, me as an ex-military person, if I see anything that looks government related when I'm outside of the United States, I'm like, no sudden movements, just walk, try to blend in. I mean, I'm a tree,
This just really puts a pin on the point that photographers are looked at as suspicious a lot of the times, no matter where you are. And it's something, I won't trespass. I will get a permit if I'm supposed to have a permit. I research where I'm going if I'm taking people somewhere. I think it just goes to show the responsibility that you have to have as a photographer, because people do kind of give you the eye and want to know what you're doing.
When you think Chris has, having gone to umpteen more countries than I've ever been to in the last year, you would think that he has that level of sense to know the do's and don'ts of flying drones near government installations or military or anything like that.
I think knowing or not knowing is different than caring or not caring.
Oh, you mean like, hey, I'm gonna ask forgiveness. I'm just gonna get the shot, kind of thing.
Yeah, ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Yeah, and I think that might be the solid line for a lot of photographers, because I've done some urban exploration myself, and I know some photographers that have even made TV shows about that particular thing. And urban exploration, for those that might not be familiar, is basically recreational trespassing. So, I mean, you find an abandoned building, and you go and you explore it. And with a camera in hand, you can get some remarkable images if you go into the right kind of building. I myself, the most fantastic one that I've been in is called Buzulja, which is, I might be messing up the pronunciation, but it is the former Communist Party headquarters in Bulgaria, built during the era of the Soviet Union. It is a remarkably destroyed building. Maybe I'll even send you a link to put a picture in the show notes, because if people are curious, you should really see this building. It is fantastic and phenomenal. I met more English-speaking people in that building than I did in the rest of the country. But it is an abandoned state-owned building, and so if you get caught in there, I mean, there might be some issues about that. A colleague of mine was he was traveling through an abandoned building. I can't remember exactly where, but the point of the story was that he heard some other people in the building and decided to hide in a closet because he wanted to avoid any possible confrontation. It turns out that the police were training their canine units in that same building, and they found him pretty damn quickly.
Yes.
And
oh man, that's hilarious.
He got off without any issues. They saw that he didn't have a backpack full of spray paint cans. He had like some 4x5 large format cameras and stuff that he was taking pictures with. And so they realized, okay, you know, slap on the wrist, just don't do that again. That was dumb. Just go away now.
Yeah.
And so that's the kind of response that a lot of people that take risks hope that they get. And if they get any worse than that, well, they've taken the risk to start with, so you deal with the consequences.
Yeah, I mean, you got to go to where the shot is, right? But there's, like Christine said, there's a line. You know, you could go to where the shot is, and you could operate under the auspices of ask for forgiveness after you get it, after you do it, and that may work sometimes. But every now and then, you may spend 13 days in a Cuban prison. I hope you enjoyed this quick clip of This Week in Photo. If you'd like more videos like this, just subscribe to our YouTube channel or subscribe to our podcasts. That's plural, over at thisweekinphoto.com.